Okay, so you've got a 10 by 10 shed or maybe a rim joist or a small wall that you're looking to have insulated. And let's say you called up your spray foam contractor locally. They came out, took a look at it, and gave you a price. Were you shocked by the number? It was probably $7 million to have them come out and do a small job for you. That's where this gun foam comes in. So today we're going to look at all the gun foams that are available on Amazon and try them out and see which one does what. Okay, so we have an Akfix Thermcoat. We have the SprayMan with a pretty cool turtle on the front. We have an IXIR Pro, the Vega, and then the Stanley. I know they make great cups. We're going to find out how well they do with spray foam. All right, so each one of these cans came with tips, except for one. This IXIR Pro came just as you see it. All of the other ones came with tips for your gun. So we're going to use those tips on each can. When we get to the IXIR Pro, we'll probably just use one of the other tips that we were already spraying with, whichever one we found best. Also keep in mind, each one of these cans only goes for 20 board feet. So again, a board foot is only 1 foot by 1 foot by 1 inch. So when you're talking an inch in depth, if you're doing 4 or 5 inches of foam, this can's not going to last you very long. You've got enough in this can to do a 4 foot by 5 foot section by 1 inch in depth. Okay, so each one of these foams are considered a closed cell spray foam. I didn't buy anything that was open cell. The cans don't really specify if it's considered 2-pound closed cell or maybe a hybrid closed cell. And each one of these ran me somewhere between $22 to $28 a can. If this is one of the first runs that you've had with this type of product, you need a couple things to go along with this foam. So this isn't the type of foam that has the little screw-in tip and the straw hanging off the top of it. You got to have a gun to run it. So you get a gun, you can buy them pretty much anywhere nowadays, any big box store or on Amazon. You flip the foam over, it screws right into the top of the gun. Along with that, you definitely have to have a way of cleaning the gun. So let's say you're done with this can, you want to move to the next can. You want to run the cleaner through it. So in this kit, this comes with the foam, the gun, the cleaner, as well as a pair of goggles. I don't know, they might have a little turtle on there or something. I'll probably never even open them. But either way, you kind of have to get the basics. You should have a mask. You might want to have some rubber gloves or something like that along with it. The Vega kit came with the gloves. They come with like, looks like little rubber gloves or something in there, as well as the foam and the cleaner along with it. You really don't need this one for one. You know, the cleaner is kind of one of those things where if you get 1 can of cleaner, it's going to last you probably 6, 8, 10 cans of foam. Usually you only use it in between switches and whenever you're done with the gun itself. So you always want to clean that thing out. So next time, a month down the road, you go to use it, it's still usable. All right, let's get this out of here. And we're going to start with the SprayMan. So we'll start with this because we've got the gun with it. And after that, we'll use that cleaner to run through there. We're going to try both of these tips that it comes with. Probably should have opened it before I ran the video. But yeah, it's got 2 tips in there. Looks like one that kind of has a wider spray than the other on there. We'll try both of those tips on there. We're going to head up to the attic space. We've got a small attic up there that's never been insulated. It hasn't been insulated yet, and we're going to kind of waste a little bit of product up there. Okay, so to prep the space to get it ready for the foam, you really want to cut back the tie back just so you have a full solid barrier up against the sheathing. You also want to clean any webbing, any debris, any squirrel nuts, anything you can think of that could be in place of where the foam's going to be going. You also want to make sure that the temperature in the building is correct. So you really want to make sure it's somewhere in the ballpark, I'd say between 40 and 80 degrees. Anything below 40 degrees on a substrate, you may have trouble with this type of foam adhering to it. The SprayMan seems to be coming out of the foam can a little bit on the thin side. It's definitely going to take you a couple of coats for sure, and most likely it's not going to foam up as much as I'm hoping, but we'll give it 5-10 minutes or so and see how much it expands to. Well, it looks like I forgot to shake the can, so that might be the reason why I was getting such a thin coat on the first run here. We're going to run it again, see what we get. Nope. Looks like we're still getting the same pretty thin going on. Let's give it a couple minutes. Let's see what it sets up looking like. We might it might just go on this way and maybe it expands properly. We'll find out. All right, so that's the end of the can. Here is the cleaner. Let's hook up the cleaner and see what we've got. All right, SprayMan cleaner works. See, make sure this thing doesn't freeze up on us. And I'm also going to rerun the cleaner through it and try it maybe a few days later just to double check, make sure it cleaned it out like it was supposed to. Damn it, Tom, where are those gloves? Damn it. Okay, I changed my mind. You're going to want the gloves. All right, let's try the IXIR Pro. So this one, as I'm spraying it on, it seems to spray nicer than the SprayMan did. It definitely goes on more like what I expected. It seems like it's filling in a couple of the gaps a little bit better. Hopefully we can get the yield out of it, and hopefully we can get to that 20 board feet number. All right, so that's the end of the can right there, and it looks like I didn't get a whole lot of square feet out of it, but maybe this will expand a little further. We'll find out once we run our board foot number and see what we can get out of it. All in all, it wasn't terrible. It'll definitely cover like it's supposed to. Definitely going to need 2 coats with this though, unless it expands more than we expect it to here. So we're going to try the Akfix next. So as I'm spraying this one on, this one sprays pretty similar to the IXIR Pro. It seems to be covering a little bit better for us and seems to be expanding a little better. It's definitely a little bit nicer of a spray pattern to it. You'll notice as I'm spraying, there is a little bit of blotchiness coming out to it and a little bit of droop. Keeping the tip of that gun clean is kind of key. You know, wiping the tip off once in a while so you have a good pattern coming out of it. It's kind of important on these foams. Fire foam. So I'm not too sure how this is going to work out, but the can did come with a spray tip for the gun itself. So obviously it is meant to spray in a pattern like this. Normally I don't really use this type of foam too often unless we're using it more so to kind of fill major gaps. So spraying it in a fan pattern is a little bit different for me. Seems to be covering pretty well. Once I get about maybe halfway through the can though, it goes to a regular straight pattern like it's trying to fill a hole. I did try clearing the tip a little bit and it didn't seem to go back to a fan pattern at all. So this one definitely worth buying if you need that type of foam, it seems. It's going to end up looking a little awkward when I'm done because I'm kind of filling beads up and down instead of spraying it on. All right, and the Stanley. So my original thought with the Stanley was not to spray it to the wall at all and take one of my daughter's Stanley cups and spray foam it and drop it off the roof and see how well the cup holds up compared to one that's not spray foamed. but we wouldn't be able to test our board feet number by doing that. And that idea got shot down pretty quick. This one seems to be going on pretty well. Real similar to the Akfix. Stanley's probably a better brand name, but I guess let's find out how many board feet we get out of it before we say that. Brand name's been around for, what, 40, 50 years or so, and Akfix I've never heard of. Actually, Stanley is the only brand name I've heard of out of all of these ones that we're testing here. So it does go on real nice, creates a real nice pattern. It is foaming up like it should, so it's definitely foaming up better than a few of the others. And let's see what we get out of it on board feet. All in all, looking at the finished product, I would say the Stanley and the Akfix look the best. Most of the time you're going to cover this with drywall or something else, you're never going to see it again. But if you plan on painting it, those are definitely going to be the two easiest to paint. Toughest one to paint is definitely going to be the fire foam. You know, when it starts spraying in a bead like that, it creates a lot of creaks and a lot of little areas and bubbles and stuff. It's much easier to paint a flat surface than it is to paint a bunch of rocks. Okay, to start, the SprayMan gun, not bad. Definitely worth 30 bucks. Cleans nice, sprays nice. Really wouldn't see the reason to spend much more than this if you're really only going to do it once. This will definitely do the job for you. Cleaner worked exactly like it should. Cleaned the gun easy. Cleaned up the outside of it simply. You can see there's still some left on it. It pops right off. No big deal. The spray itself, not bad. I mean, it was all right. It'll do what you're looking to do. As soon as I sprayed it, it kind of ran down the wall a little bit. It wasn't foaming up as much as I expected it to. Definitely it could have to do with the fact that I forgot to shake the can for the first run with it. You're definitely going to need 2 coats. You know, you're going to need to put an inch on and probably go over it and put another inch on if you're trying to get to that 2-inch mark. It sprayed 2.5 feet by 5 foot, 12.5 square feet or so. When I equate that to how many inches I've got an average inch depth of about an inch on that, which equates to, you know, 12, 13, 14 board feet, somewhere in that range. So the 20 number, didn't get 20 board feet out of it. I do have a couple of bubbles which could be accounted for it, but all in all, you know, figure you're probably going to get about maybe 15 board feet out of it or so. Okay, the next one is this IXIR Pro, IXIR. Not sure how they pronounce that. IXIR Pro, when I sprayed it, it foamed up, so it did exactly what it was supposed to do. It definitely filled more gaps. We ended up with an average of about, we got a low of 3/4 inch on the low ends. High end was about 2-inch depth. Maybe some of those bubbles would push to 2.5 inch. I'm figuring it for an average of about 1.5 inch depth on that wall that we did. Definitely went on a little bit better than the SprayMan. It foamed up a little bit better. Kind of turned out a little shoddy looking. You know, if you look at it, it's a little bubbly. It's not really completely flat like we'd like to see. Average depth, I'd say, was about 1.5 inches on this one, which when we figured that out, I went 8 square feet out of the can. So we're getting about 12 to 13 board feet out of this, which is well under the 20 that it says on the front of it. So none of these actually went the 20 square feet, or 20 board feet rather, but this one definitely didn't get as much out of it as I'd hoped. I sprayed the cans completely dried, so they didn't have anything left in them at all by the time I was done. And this one, we only got about 12 or 13 board feet out of it. I'd buy it if I had to, but I think there's a better option out there. I would probably put this toward the bottom of the list. All right, so Akfix. I'd never heard of it before. I've never used it before. Bought it on Amazon just to try it, and I was actually pretty surprised with it. When you first start spraying it, it comes out with a nice fan pattern. It foams up nice. It covers nice. It's a really good product for what we're looking at here. Coverage area, we got a low of 1.25 inches, and our high end was 3 1/4. So it had a real extreme on the high end. Average depth, I'm figuring about 2 to 2 1/4 inches average depth on that wall. It didn't cover a whole lot of wall with it. We did about 2 foot by 4 foot, and another section that was maybe a foot by a foot or so. Figure 9.5 square feet, give or take. But when you figure in the average there, you know, if you're 2 1/4 inch average depth, you got about 19, maybe 20 board feet. So this one was definitely a surprise. This one came the closest to what the can says. Like I said, 20 board feet. This is the best one we found so far. I would definitely buy it again. It's no more or less expensive than the other ones. They're all within a couple dollars of each other. But this was actually the surprise. I would go after that one again. All right, Vega. Never heard of Vega either. Never used it before. Actually, you know what? Before we get into the Vega, let's talk about the tips that came with all this stuff. These tips that showed up, most of them had 2 tips with them. One of them, I think the IXIR Pro didn't have any. They're all pretty much the same. Some of them are duplicates. One of them had one that was kind of a tighter pattern, but they all pretty much sprayed similarly. So as long as you got a couple of them, no big deal. As for the Vega, it's actually a fire foam, so I don't know if I actually should have included this in the video, but either way, we bought it, and it's part of the video now. So when we sprayed this, it did come out at a fan pattern. The fan was a little bit tight. It came out a little bit blotchy, and then toward the end, it started freezing up to the point where it ended up just being a bead, similar to a regular fire foam with the straw nozzle on it. Nothing really wrong with it. We did yield a fair amount out of the can. The biggest advantage with this, I guess, it's a fire foam. So if you've got a situation where you want some sort of a fire retardant to it, this might be an option if you've got electrical or something that you might need to use that on. It just didn't fan quite as well. So we did get 1 1/4 inch was on our low end, and the high end on the wall was 3 1/4, which gave me an average of about that 2 1/4 or so. 2 1/4 average, we only got about 7 square feet out of it. So when I figure out your board feet, you're getting about 15 or 16 board feet out of this. I would buy this again if I had the purpose, but really most of the time we don't really use fire foam too often in a fan pattern. Most of the time it's more to fill holes. It did foam up very well. So when I sprayed it, it foamed and puffed just like it should. So that might be a good option for certain instances, maybe just not for your shed or your rim joist or something of that along that lines. All right, and then last one is the Stanley. So the Stanley actually also surprised me. This is actually pretty good stuff. This ended up being real smooth looking when it was done. It went on nice, had a nice fan pattern. We actually got a nice look to the wall when it was all said and done. Looked similar to an actual 2-pound closed cell foam. All of them had a soft feel to them. They're definitely not open cell in any way, but they may not be they're definitely not as good as like a true 2-pound closed cell foam. This one I would say would be either number 1 or 2 on the list if I had to buy it again. So we got an average of about 2-inch coverage on this. On our low end, we were at 1 1/4 inch. On our high end, we were at 3 inches. There wasn't a whole lot of bubbles to it. There wasn't a whole lot of puffy spots. So figuring about a 2-inch average, we only got about 7 square feet out of it. So really, we only got about 14 board feet out of this can. 14 board feet compared to the can saying 20. It's definitely less than the 20 without a doubt. But I would buy it again. It's on the more expensive end. You're going to yield less out of the can. But this would definitely be a possibility again. All right, so none of these are as nice as having somebody come over your house and do it for you and spray it with 2-pound closed cell foam. But if you're looking to do like an open cell or something, this might, on a small space, this might be a replacement for it. One of these cans here, you cover a small square footage area. You definitely wouldn't want to use these on a rim joist of a basement because of the moisture down there. When you push on it, you can feel that there's air pockets inside there. Even though it says closed cell foam on all of these, I don't think I would trust it to put in a moisture situation. But if you got a small, maybe a knee wall or something somewhere that needs to be done where there's no moisture, maybe a shed, and you're really aggressive and you want to stand out there for half a day and spray this, it's definitely an option. I would buy the Akfix again, I would buy the Stanley again, and I would buy the SprayMan again. Those 3 there worked pretty well. They just kind of had different patterns and differences to them, and they're all pretty similar in price. I think the Stanley, I'll have to check, but I think the Stanley was the most expensive of the 3. But again, if you're looking to do it yourself, those 3 there would be a possibility. These 2 here, the fire foam, I don't really have a use for a fire foam that sprays in a fan pattern too often. And this one, I think there's better products out there. So this was originally supposed to be like a 4 or 5 minute video. Obviously, it's a little difficult to condense this much information into that. So thanks for sticking around for the longer video here. It looks like everything here, actually hang on a second, everything except that. Most of these are going to be available at woodmakerproducts.com. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us at Woodmaker.